Good afternoon. My name is Jack Osborne. I'm the president-elect of the San Bernardino County Bar Association. You're certainly getting an earful today from San Bernardino County, and the reason is that it is a real crisis in our county. Despite the amazing efforts of our presiding judge, who spoke earlier at balancing our budget, there is a crisis in our community. My practice is in the probate area in rural San Bernardino. I represent minors. I represent conservatees who are the victims of elder abuse, minors who are subject to guardianship proceedings that will determine where they live for the rest of their life. And as many have said, the distances in our county and the closed courthouses mean that people just can't get to court. Just this morning, as I was coming here, I got a text message from somebody in my office. One of my paralegals was meeting a grandmother who had driven this morning all the way from Needles, that distance from Ensenada to Los Angeles, so that she could be in court, so that she could get an order from the court to enroll kids in school. She had to come all the way, that distance, just to get that court order. So we know you hear a lot about court funding. We just hope that you keep it in mind when the governor's revise comes. We need to restore court funding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, members. My name is Richard Adams. I'm a resident of Pomona, where one courthouse was closed, but I'm a vice president of ASME 3302. And I come to you this afternoon asking you to restore funding for the courts. The employees at this point are almost at the breaking point, and the employees are now facing mass reduction in wages from the program that's being pushed and farming out of the IT department of the LA Superior Court. My department has 25,000 documents that can't even be logged in because we don't have the staff. And we have 12,000 need to be sorted. 1,600 judgments just go unprocessed. Where funding is at an all-time low for the courts. And I would ask you to please do all you can do to restore funding for the courts. We need 266 million to keep our heads above water. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. My name is Leslie Neby. I am a court employee for 22 years with the Orange County Superior Court. I've been a court clerk 3 for approximately 15 years. I wanted to come and share with you today that the reduction in court funding is drastically impacting our court employees, which directly are our first point service to our constituents, our communities, and that lack of funding is really having an adverse effect. We're doubling our workload. The quantity of work is doubling, trying to get all of the information out to the public members, and it affects them. There's longer wait times, and we all know that there's court closures and staff reductions, and we were really imploring you to please consider all of this when you're making your decisions for court funding. And I personally would like to invite you, as a court employee, you're more than welcome to come out to Orange County, sit with us for a day, and then see these things for yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chanel Castillo. I am the Chief Shop Steward for our local 2700 Contra Costa County Courts. I'm also a courtroom clerk for Contra Costa County Superior Courts. What I've seen with the budget is attorneys acting out in line, angry, yelling at clerks, which has never happened before. And I've been with the court for almost 10 years. They're becoming unprofessional. They're interacting with pro pers unprofessionally because they're frustrated with the line, with how long they're waiting. We have clerks who are just have to walk away from the windows because they're so upset because of the stress that they're dealing with, because there's no money to hire someone else to help them. Right now we're asking for 266.5. And that's just to keep us where we're at. And Contra Costa County is looking at 9 furlough days this fiscal year. So that means we're closed to the public for 9 days. And that means mail's still coming in, work's not being processed, people not seeing a judge to have things happen for them. And then we're going to be here again next year, standing in this long line to speak in front of you to say, we need more money, because it keeps coming. And when we see what next year might bring for Contra Costa, we might be looking at 10 furlough days next fiscal year. So that's another 2 weeks gone.
Okay, thank you.
So, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is William Brown. I'm the managing partner of a civil litigation firm in Orange County, California. We practice civil litigation in courts in Southern California. In addition, 5 years ago, I helped found a veterans clinic at Chapman Law School, and so I'm familiar with the collaborative courts and how they operate. I've gone to observe them and seen them closely operate in Orange County. I'm here at the invitation of Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse to urge the court to fully fund the court system. And with respect to the allocation specifically towards the collaborative courts, I'm speaking against that. I believe that it's a valuable system, but I think it should be left to the discretion of the presiding judges to allocate the resources so that they're not bound when they can't open courtrooms to have a specially allocated courtroom. These are worthy systems, but I believe the presiding judges can decide that. I urge you to fully fund the courts and not allocate specifically to particular items. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Paul Marigondo. I'm the presiding judge of the Santa Cruz Superior Court, and even in a small court like ours, the budget reductions over the last 5 years have caused us to have to close one courtroom out of 11, lay off a commissioner, lay off staff. And while the collaborative court proposal is a welcome one, I'm here to urge that this committee fully fund the blueprint as requested by the Chief Justice, because earmarking money one way or another is an excellent idea, but it takes away the flexibility of the local court to deal with the local issues. Each court has some different kinds of unique problems, unique issues to them, and it's best for the local courts and the players that are involved, the partners in justice, to be able to evaluate what is best for them. So while today we welcome that, I'm here again to ask, please, that we fund as requested by the Chief Justice in our blueprint. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairperson. My name is Rick Burns, and I work for the Orange County Superior Court. I'm a Court Clerk 3. I've been with the court for 18 years. 14 of those years I've been a courtroom clerk, so I've seen a lot of changes. In the last few years, we're asking for budget restoration. You know, in the last few years, we've seen a lot of budget cuts and forcing our management to come in and cut positions. We're down over 400 staff positions. This makes the people that are currently working in the courtrooms and in the clerk's office overworked. We used to have in civil an average inventory per judge of 300. Now it's in excess of 600. One of the things that we need to think about is, as clerks, is that we need to keep the integrity of our workload high, because accidents, mistakes that can be made, as in releasing an inmate, we don't want to have that. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for speaking.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Carolyn Greger. I'm a court reporter from Orange County Superior Court. I've been a court reporter for 40 years, a little over 40 years, 20 years in Orange County Superior Court. I've seen a lot of changes, and the budget, the Great Recession and the budget cutbacks have impacted court reporters tremendously throughout the state, as you well know. We're at service levels that are incredibly low. We cannot service the public at these staffing levels. We're covering 3 and 4 courtrooms a day in our county. We have what I call the red light, green light system, where we go from courtroom to courtroom. As soon as our judge is off the bench, we cover another courtroom. The stress and the strain on the rank and file of our employees has really impacted all of us. We ask you to restore court funding, fully fund the courts as requested by the Chief. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Alan Carlson. I'm the Executive Officer for the Orange County Superior Court. I want to make 2 quick points. First, I want to emphasize what's already been said, that the $100 million in the governor's budget will not even keep us even with where we are this year. If that's all we get, we will be providing less service and fewer staff people next year than we have this year. So we need at least $265 million just for the trial courts to stay even with where we are before. I agree with other folks. I would rather you not earmark money for particular things. Different courts did different things, and that earmarking will just create more inequities among the courts depending on who did things and who didn't do things. Secondly, I would ask, it has been mentioned that you remove the 1% cap on what could be carried forward from one year to the next. Orange County has been very successful the last few years trying to minimize the impact on people. We've done a lot of things. We've done a lot of technology. We've done a lot of business process reengineering. A lot of that was only done because we had money that we could carry forward from one year to the next. That's gone now. We can't do that anymore. We're bottomed out. So I would ask that that be revised also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Gloria Sanchez. I'm a staff attorney at Contra Costa Superior Court. Basically, I want to speak to you about self-help because that's my specialty. I'm the senior self-help facilitator for the court, and I help people who don't have attorneys because they can't afford them. And even if they can't afford them, they are free to use our services. So we service anybody who is unrepresented and doesn't have a complicated case that requires attorney representation. This is extremely important because it represents 80% of the people using the courts right now in the area of probate, family, and civil courts. To give you just one example, and I'll take your time for one quick second, I hope. If we lose one facilitator, we're talking 200 pro pers seen less each week in our court. That means just under 10,000 people a year. And it means that we stand to lose, based on the current budget that we are addressing with this court, with our court, possibly 2 facilitators. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Virginia Turner. On October 3rd, 2013, my 14-year-old daughter was physically attacked at her high school in Contra Costa County. Police arrested the male student who attacked her. He told them he considered her girlfriend and confessed to the assault. First, they put him in juvenile hall. Later, he was let out on electronic home detention. My daughter was afraid that he would return to her school and continue to harass her. So we filed for a domestic violence protective order from the court. A judge issued a temporary restraining order on October 9th and set a trial for the case. We hired Mary Carey to represent my daughter at the hearing. None of us were familiar with the court system, and my daughter was afraid of what would happen if her attacker decided to fight the restraining order. My daughter was having trouble sleeping and was worried all the time. On November 12th, the trial took place at Richmond Courthouse. My daughter was scared, shy, and very anxious, but knew that she was doing the right thing. We were worried, unfamiliar with the process, and hoped that the court... I please beg you to listen to this is very serious. Since her attacker had a criminal case and had confessed, we did not expect that he would fight the restraining order. But when he announced to the judge that he was fighting my daughter's protective order, our lawyer called him to the witness stand to prove he had already admitted assaulting her to the police and lied in his written opposition to the restraining order. While he was taking oath to tell the truth, we looked around and noticed there was no court reporter taking documentation of anything that was being said in that court. Our lawyer asked the judge if the proceedings were going to be recorded, and he stated due to budget cuts, the restraining order calendar proceedings were not reported in person. Then she asked if the court would be recording it on tape. Once again, the judge said, same answer, budget cuts. We started getting very worried. I saw the lawyer and my daughter talking at the counsel table, and the lawyer looking distressed. Finally, I heard the lawyer ask the judge if she could record the case on her iPhone, so that there could be appeal if necessary to impeach the attacker. My daughter looked back at us for support, and we encouraged her to go forward. I was wondering if we had done the right thing to encourage a 14-year-old to seek the protection.
Could you? I don't.
Okay.
I know it's hard, but could you?
The bottom line is this: there is no evidence in that court to prove that that gentleman was lying. The result of that, finally, because we couldn't hear from the iPhone what he was saying, my 14-year-old does not want to relive the trial she had to go through. I'm here to tell you the story. Please understand that victims have to have a recorded done in the courtroom so wrongdoers are held accountable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cookie Gambucci. I'm a career service I created 22 years ago in Contra Costa County, Martinez. When the courts were they were open 8 hours long, and there were plenty of clerks. Now they're down to 5 hours. Each department, probate, family law, civil, have their own waiting lines. We have to wait 2 to 3 hours per line every single day. During a 5-hour stretch makes it impossible for us to make a living. We're getting more and more demand for our time and our work because the courts are a little bit bogged down in filing paperwork. So we're desperately needed, but we don't have the time to do it. So could you please give us more hours and more clerks? Thank you.
Thank you.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members. I have some handouts for everybody. First, I want to thank you very, very much for the efforts you made last year to give us $60 million. This year, as has been said, if we get $100 million as the governor proposes, we're cutting. There's no question about it. For us, it's $2.1 million in Contra Costa County, where I'm the presiding judge. We're using $4 million out of our reserves, which will be gone. So we have to be cutting. But if we get the money that the chief has requested, here's what we'll be able to do. We'll be able to keep both our clerk's office hours open all day long instead of closing at 1 o'clock in most of our departments. We'll be able to answer our telephones all day long instead of stopping at 1 o'clock as we do now. We will be able to cancel 9 days of furloughs, which you heard one of our employees discuss. We'll be able to reopen 2 courtrooms of the 8 that we've closed. We'll be able to staff our Richmond and Pittsburgh courts so that we can have domestic violence, civil harassment, elder abuse, and workplace violence restraining orders filed and heard in those courts. We'll be able to serve 18,000 people in our self-help centers. We'll be able to mediate child custody disputes within 3 to 4 weeks instead of 3 to 4 months. We'll eliminate the backlog in our annual conservatorship reviews. We will keep our homeless court, which is hanging by a thin grant-funded thread, and we hope to open a veterans court and a truancy court. We would appreciate any help you could give us to make this a reality. Thank you.
And did you give that to us in writing?
I did, yes, sir.
And I apologize. Your name again?
Very good.
Good. Okay.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jacqueline Carey Wilson. I'm president of the Riverside County Bar Association and deputy county counsel in the county of San Bernardino. So I have a foot in both counties. I've worked as an attorney in both counties. I've also argued in our Court of Appeal. Both counties are seriously underfunded, as the presiding judges have both said to this chamber. We need more judges. I'm here to ask you to support SB 1190. That would provide 50 additional judges for our entire court and for our entire state, 9 in San Bernardino, 9 in Riverside, and 2 in our appellate court. We need this. We need these additional judges. With those judges comes with additional staffing for that, and that would be a good increase and good start in the direction for funding our courts again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Darker, Chief Executive of United Public Employees of California. I live and work in Shasta County, and I represent 6 rural courts, including Shasta County. Our employees are suffering. Our courts are suffering in Northern California. I agree with the recommendation here today that money be allocated to the collaborative courts. Unlike others who have spoken so far today, we don't have the same experiences. Our court administrators are spending money on other things than providing court services, and we need that to be corrected. Any money that's allocated to our courts in rural Northern California, we appreciate, and we keep it coming. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Height. I'm the presiding judge of the Sacramento Superior Court. We have a very healthy, working, collaborative courts process, but we're in dire need of bodies. 11 years ago, when I left state service and came to the court, we had roughly 1,000 employees. Today, we have 617. We've lost 250 in the last 5 years. Under the governor's budget, we will lose $2.4 million July 1st next year. We will lose this coming year. we will lose 30 people. We cannot run government with the number of people we have. We process massive amounts of paper a day. I had an estimate done, 1.5 million pieces of paper we process a year. It takes people to do that. After you stand in line 8 hours to file your family law case and wait 4 months to get heard, then it's going to take you another 4 months before we can process that paperwork. We need the chief's budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, thank you very much. Tim Lynch, speaking on behalf of the San Bernardino County Board of Supervisors today, to thank you for your consideration and to thank all the people who traveled today so far, to speak on behalf of those who couldn't travel and can't travel within our vast district, and encourage you to support the courts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Judge Stephen Manley, and I am not a presiding judge. I am a collaborative court judge, and I have one of the largest reentry courts in the country and in the state. I strongly believe in collaborative courts, but I just want to remind you of two things. Historically, first, the funding for collaborative courts that the legislature has kindly enacted in the past has been for treatment and services, not for the courts. The courts developed collaborative courts by giving of what they already had. They didn't receive any additional funding. And so I would suggest to you that you always need to keep in mind, if it were not for presiding judges, we would have no collaborative courts in this state. It is they are the ones who believed in what we were trying to do years ago and continued it forward. And I would just urge you that there should be just one budget for the court, and that collaborative courts certainly will be part of that if there is increased funding. And it's continued to this day. And I would think that one of the things, when you were talking earlier about commending people, you should commend the courts and our presiding judges, including those here today, because they have kept collaborative courts alive at a time when other services have been cut. And so they fully appreciate the benefits of this program. But I would urge you to keep in mind the fact that the courts must be one, and we must respect the discretion that we have to give to our presiding judges to make these courts work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members. I'm David Yamasaki. I'm the Court Executive Officer for the Superior Court in Santa Clara County. But I'm also the chair of the Court Executives Advisory Committee, which has a membership of 58 CEOs throughout California's Superior Courts. And I, first of all, want to make 2 points. One is to thank you for the $60 million allocation that we received last year. It was enormously helpful in helping us sustain our operations. That, with the remaining $200 million that we've been able to scrape together from our fund balances, have enabled us to continue the level of services that we see today. And as you've heard, we are looking at reducing services if we move forward with the $100 million proposal presented by the governor. And I know that you have very difficult decisions ahead of you in terms of prioritizing where the precious resources are going. I will tell you that we have to serve the same people, the mental health individuals, the people who are dependents on substances, families that need to come to court for services, need your help, and the only way we can provide that is through additional support from you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank everyone for coming here today to give their comments from San Bernardino, Sacramento, Contra Costa, Shasta, Santa Clara, LA County, Orange County, Pomona, Barstow, Victorville. And I probably missed a few to testify. It's really, really, really important for us here in the legislature to hear from you. And I want you to know that each of you have been heard, and we understand what you need. And for us, it's I think for the legislature, and I've said this several times, we're ready and willing to fund the courts. We're ready and willing to fund the courts at capacity, or whatever we think the number ultimately should be. Our challenge for us is we also need to ensure that all of our partners in this endeavor are on board. And so everyone in the legislature needs to know how the money is spent, because we have a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that. And in the executive branch, the governor's office, a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that the money spent will be used wisely. And so I would recommend to Chief Justice and Chief Jar will be giving me some information that I think that we can share with others on what once you get the money, what it will be spent on. And I think that's been a challenge for many of us here in the legislature. When we hear that we need more money in different buckets, we don't clearly get an idea of how this will improve service. And when you give anyone $266 million or $370 million, whatever that other number may be, we have to know a year from now what will happen with that, and then some kind of accountability and transparency, so do we know that the money that was spent will get us a desired result. And I believe the Chief Justice, working through Chief Jar, is planning to give the legislature their kind of blueprint of what that is. And I would recommend that you even speak to, there was a gentleman here earlier, Barry Good, who kind of outlined specifically what you would get. And the judge from Sacramento County, if we know it's 39 people in Sacramento, that's what you need at such and such a level, and this is what you will get if you bring on an additional amount of cash to do this, then you will get, the lines will go down, you get rid of furloughs. You know, we need something tangible to show that this money will actually be effective and will be done efficiently. To just say, give me more money, and I'm not trying to be facetious, but, you know, my son asks for money all the time, and I give it to him. I have no idea how he spends it, and it's frustrating. And he comes back the next week and asks for more money, and it gets even more frustrating. And so I hopefully that you understand, maybe in the past, before I got here, and I'm just a baby legislator, so I've only had a year underneath my belt, but from once I came in the city of Los Angeles, you detail what you're going to give when you get any type of allocation from the legislative body. And when it goes to the executive body, I think we can make, and I'm saying we can then hopefully make a better case to the executive branch, the governor's office, not only why this is needed, but exactly what the residents of this state will get. And so we will continue to have conversations like this. I anticipate that we'll get some information fairly soon on what the taxpayers will get once we start fully funding the courts. And then we'll be able to move hopefully along in a much more, in a quicker fashion. Because I believe we do need to get the courts back up to full funding, not in 3 years. Hopefully we can do it in 2 years. But the only way we're going to get that there is we all work together to understand what the needs are and how physically we're going to get there. And so with that, I thank everybody for being here, and this Budget Committee is now adjourned.